In the depths of space, where empires rise and fall like cosmic waves, there exists a truth that even the mightiest rulers struggle to accept. Sometimes the most extraordinary solutions come from the most unexpected places. When an alien queen's legendary armor, forged by the greatest craftsman of 12 worlds and blessed by ancient technologies, suddenly fails her in the hour of greatest need, she discovers that salvation doesn't always wear a crown or carry noble blood. Sometimes it comes with grease-stained hands, a toolbox full of primitive human engineering, and a heart willing to help when everyone else has given up. This is the story of how a simple human engineer became the bridge between worlds, proving that true strength isn't measured in the sophistication of your technology, but in the depth of your compassion and the cleverness of your solutions. Prepare yourself for a journey that will show you why humans, despite being the youngest species in the galactic community, have something that no amount of advanced technology can replicate: the stubborn refusal to accept that anything is truly unfixable. What happens when an empire's greatest treasure meets humanity's greatest gift? You're about to find out. The maintenance bay of the galactic station Nexus hummed with the quiet efficiency of 1,000 different technologies working in harmony. Marcus Chun wiped his hands on an oil-stained cloth, surveying the spacecraft he had just finished repairing. The Vorthen freighter's engines now purred like a contented cat instead of screaming like a dying beast. He smiled with satisfaction. Another job well done. Marcus had been working on Nexus Station for 3 years now, ever since Earth had been accepted into the galactic community. As one of only 12 humans on the massive station that housed over 50,000 beings from across the galaxy, he had quickly earned a reputation as someone who could fix things that others had given up on. His human engineering approach, what the other species politely called creative problem-solving and less politely called chaotic improvisation, had proven surprisingly effective. The station's artificial gravity kept his tools from floating away as he packed them into his worn leather toolkit. It was one of the few things he had brought from Earth, a gift from his grandfather who had been a mechanic before him. The alien technologies around him were incredible, but sometimes the old Earth tools were exactly what a job needed. Marcus Chun to Bay 17 came a voice over the comm system. It was Coordinator Yylith, a tall, blue-skinned Kandorian who managed the maintenance schedules. Her voice carried an unusual note of urgency. Marcus touched his comm badge. Chun here. What's the situation? We have a priority request. Royal priority. Report to Bay 17 immediately. Royal priority? Marcus had never heard that term used before. In his 3 years on the station, he had worked on everything from garbage haulers to luxury yachts, but nothing that carried a royal designation. His curiosity piqued. He shouldered his toolkit and made his way through the station's corridors. Nexus Station was a marvel of engineering, a massive structure that served as a neutral meeting point for dozens of alien civilizations. The corridors were wide enough to accommodate the largest species and designed with subtle environmental controls that could adjust temperature, humidity, and even gravity to suit different biological needs. Marcus had grown used to the sight of beings that would have seemed impossible just a few years ago. The crystalline Cytheri, who communicated through harmonic vibrations, the gas-floating Etherians who moved in environmental suits, and the mechanical Kogari who had uploaded their consciousness into robotic bodies millennia ago. Bay 17 was in the high-security section of the station, requiring 2 additional clearance checks that Marcus had never needed before. When the final blast door opened, he stopped in his tracks. The bay was enormous, easily 3 times the size of any he had worked in before. But it wasn't the size that made him stare. It was the ship. The vessel before him was unlike anything he had ever seen. It seemed to be carved from a single piece of midnight black material that absorbed light rather than reflecting it. Golden veins ran through the surface like living circuitry, pulsing with a soft inner light. The ship's design was both organic and geometric, as if someone had convinced a living creature to take the form of a spacecraft. It was beautiful, alien, and clearly the product of a technology far beyond anything in Marcus's experience. Standing beside the ship was a group of beings he had never seen before. They were tall, easily 8 feet in height, with elongated limbs and graceful movements. Their skin had an opalescent quality that shifted between deep purple and silver depending on the angle of the light. Most striking were their eyes, large, luminous orbs that seemed to hold depths of wisdom and sadness. One of them stepped forward. Unlike the others, who wore flowing robes and muted colors, this being was dressed in what appeared to be armor. But calling it armor was like calling a symphony a simple song. The suits seemed to be made of the same material as the ship, flowing over the wearer's form like liquid metal while maintaining the protection of the finest battle gear. Intricate patterns covered every surface, and Marcus could see that many of these patterns were dark, as if the armor systems had failed. "You are the human engineer?" the being asked, her voice carrying the musical quality that Marcus had learned to associate with advanced alien species. Despite the translation matrix, he could hear the underlying stress and fatigue. "I'm Marcus Chun, yes. I understand you have something that needs fixing." The being's large eyes studied him for a long moment. "I am Queen Zura THYSS of the Elendari Empire. This armor has been worn by the rulers of my people for over 10,000 years. It was forged using technologies that have been lost for millennia, and it has never failed. Until now." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. An Empire's queen, standing in front of him in broken armor, asking for his help. He had worked on complex alien technologies before, but nothing with this kind of historical and cultural significance. The weight of the moment settled on his shoulders. "What seems to be the problem?" he asked, falling back on the professional approach that had served him well. Queen Zura THYSS gestured to the dark patterns on her armor. 3 days ago, during a diplomatic mission to the Outer Rim, my ship was attacked by raiders. The armor's defensive systems activated as designed, but something went wrong. The primary matrix failed, and now most of the armor systems are offline. My own technicians cannot repair it. The Kandorian experts on this station have examined it and declared it beyond their capabilities. She paused, and Marcus could see the vulnerability beneath her regal bearing. "My people are in the midst of delicate negotiations with 3 other empires. If word spreads that the royal armor of Elendari has failed, it will be seen as an omen of weakness. Wars have started over less." Marcus nodded slowly, beginning to understand the scope of what he was being asked to do. This wasn't just a repair job. It was a matter of interstellar politics and the stability of an entire empire. "May I examine the armor?" he asked. The Queen's advisors exchanged uncertain glances, but she nodded. "You may look, but do not touch anything until we're certain you understand what you're dealing with." Marcus approached the armor slowly, pulling out a scanning device he had modified with human and alien components. As he moved around the Queen, taking readings and observations, he began to see the elegant complexity of what he was dealing with. The armor wasn't just protective gear. It was a masterpiece of integrated technology that combined defensive shields, life support communication systems, and what appeared to be some kind of quantum processing matrix. But Marcus had learned something during his time on Nexus Station. Alien technology, no matter how advanced, still followed certain basic principles. Energy had to flow from one place to another. Systems needed to communicate with each other. And when something broke, there was usually a logical reason why. "The dark patterns," he said, pointing to the failed sections. "They're not random. There's a sequence to the failure, starting here at the primary matrix and cascading outward through these secondary systems." Queen Zara THYSS looked surprised. "You can read the failure pattern?" "Energy flows the same way whether you're dealing with a human car engine or alien royal armor," Marcus replied, though he was already realizing this might not be entirely true. "The cascade suggests that the problem isn't with the individual systems. They shut down to protect themselves when the primary matrix failed. The question is why the matrix failed in the first place." He walked around to the back of the armor, where the patterns were most concentrated. His scanning device was giving readings that didn't quite make sense according to what he knew about alien technology, but they reminded him of something else. Something from Earth. Queen's RTHYSS, you said this happened during an attack by raiders. What kind of weapons were they using? Plasma cannons, primarily. Nothing that should have been able to penetrate the armor's defenses. Marcus frowned, studying his readings more carefully. I don't think the weapons caused the failure directly. I think they caused something else to happen first. He looked up at the Queen. Has this armor been modified or upgraded recently? The armor has been maintained by our finest technicians for generations, one of the advisors interjected. Every modification has been documented and approved by the Royal Academy of Sciences. Recent modifications? Marcus pressed. In the last few years, maybe something to improve compatibility with newer ship systems or communication networks? Queen's RTHYSS exchanged a glance with her advisors. 6 months ago, we integrated new quantum encryption protocols to improve security during diplomatic missions. And who designed these protocols? A joint development between our technicians and Kandorian specialists. The most advanced security technology available. Marcus nodded, pieces of the puzzle beginning to fall into place. He had seen something similar before, not with alien technology, but with human computer systems. Sometimes when you try to make two advanced systems work together, they could create unexpected resonance patterns. I think I see the problem, he said, but I'm going to need to do some testing to be sure. And I'll need to touch the armor. The advisors looked alarmed, but Queen's RTHYSS studied Marcus's face for a long moment. You believe you can repair it? I believe I can figure out what's wrong with it, Marcus said honestly. Whether I can fix it depends on what I find. The Queen made a decision that would echo across the galaxy in ways none of them could imagine. Very well, Marcus Chunaverth. Show me what human engineering can accomplish. Marcus opened his toolkit and selected his instruments carefully. He had learned that the key to working with alien technology was to approach it with respect, but not fear. Every system, no matter how advanced, was built by thinking beings to solve practical problems. And at the end of the day, problem solving was what humans did best. As he began his examination of the royal armor of Elendari, Marcus had no idea that he was about to embark on a journey that would challenge everything he thought he knew about technology, friendship, and what it truly meant to help someone in need. The Queen's simple question, "Who fixed my armor?" would soon have an answer that surprised everyone, including Marcus himself. The work ahead would test not only his engineering skills, but also his understanding of the delicate balance between preserving the past and embracing the future. And in the process, he would discover that sometimes the most advanced solution is also the most fundamentally human one. Marcus spent the next 4 hours conducting the most delicate examination of his career. The royal armor of Elendari was a marvel that challenged his understanding of what was possible. Every surface was covered with microscopic circuits that seemed to flow and shift like living metal. The quantum matrices that powered the system operated on principles he could barely comprehend, yet somehow his instruments could detect the underlying patterns. Queen's RTHYSS had remained throughout the examination, answering his questions with surprising patience. Marcus had expected royal arrogance, but instead found someone genuinely curious about his methods. When he asked about the armor's original design specifications, she provided detailed technical manuals that had been translated into dozens of languages. When he needed to understand the recent modifications, she called in the actual technicians who had performed the work. The quantum encryption upgrade was installed here, explained technician Veldar, an elderly Kandorian whose blue skin was marked with the intricate tattoos that indicated a master craftsman. We integrated it with the armor's existing communication matrix without disrupting any primary systems. Marcus studied the installation point through his magnifying scope. The work was beautiful, each connection made with the precision that came from centuries of technological advancement. But beauty and functionality weren't always the same thing. The installation looks perfect, Marcus admitted, but I'm seeing some unusual energy signatures around the integration points. Impossible, Velta replied stiffly. Our work has been tested extensively. The systems are fully compatible. Marcus had learned to navigate alien pride carefully during his time on the station. I'm not questioning your craftsmanship, but I think something unexpected happened when the raiders attacked. May I show you what I'm seeing? He connected his portable display to his scanning equipment and showed them the energy pattern he had detected. To human eyes, it looked like a complex waveform with several peaks and valleys. But Marcus had learned to read these patterns like a mechanic reads engine sounds. This spike here, he pointed to a sharp increase in the waveform, happens right at the moment the defense system is activated. But look at this secondary wave. It comes about 30 milliseconds later, and it's centered around the quantum encryption module. Queen's RTHYSS leaned forward to study the display. What does this secondary wave represent? I think it's a resonance cascade, Marcus explained. When the armor shields came online to deflect the raiders' weapons, the sudden power surge created an interference pattern with a new quantum encryption system. The two technologies started fighting each other instead of working together. Technician Veldar's tattoos actually shifted color slightly, a Kandorian sign of deep concentration or concern. Even if that were true, the armor systems are designed to handle power fluctuations. The safety protocols should have prevented any cascade failure. They did, Marcus said, pointing to another part of the waveform. See these smaller spikes? Those are the safety systems kicking in, trying to isolate the problem. But the resonance was too complex for the original programming to handle. The armor did exactly what it was designed to do. It shut down non-essential systems to protect the wearer. But the encryption module was classified as essential, Queen Zertichus said, understanding beginning to dawn in her large eyes. So when it became the source of the problem, the armor couldn't shut it down without compromising your communications and security. So it kept trying to work around the interference until the whole system became unstable. Marcus stood up from his examination and faced the Queen directly. Your armor didn't fail, Your Majesty. It sacrificed itself to keep you safe. The silence that followed was profound. The Elendari advisors exchanged glances that Marcus couldn't interpret, but the Queen herself seemed to be processing something deeper than just technical information. In our culture, she said slowly, the armor is more than protection. It is a symbol of the bond between ruler and people. If what you say is true, then the armor fulfilled that bond in a way we never imagined. Marcus nodded. The question now is whether we can repair the damage without compromising either the original systems or the new encryption protocols. Can it be done? Asked Veldar, his professional pride now mixed with genuine curiosity. Marcus looked at the armor again, his mind already working through possibilities. Maybe, but not the way anyone expects. Over the next several hours, Marcus outlined his proposed solution. It was by any reasonable standard completely insane. Instead of trying to force the incompatible systems to work together, he suggested creating a buffer zone between them, a small piece of human technology that would translate the signals and prevent interference. You want to install a human component into the royal armor of Elendari? One of the advisors asked, his voice rising in what Marcus had learned was the Elendari equivalent of shock. Not just any human component, Marcus explained patiently. A harmonic resonance filter based on principles we use in Earth's musical instruments. The idea is to let both systems operate at their optimal frequencies while preventing them from interfering with each other. The suggestion caused an immediate debate among the Elendari advisors. In their language, which sounded to Marcus like wind chimes in a gentle breeze, they discussed the implications of integrating primitive human technology into their most sacred artifact. Marcus couldn't follow the specific words, but the tone made their concerns clear. Queen Zertichys listened to the debate for several minutes before raising her hand for silence. Technician Veldar, in your professional opinion, would such a modification be technically feasible? The Kandorian studied Marcus's schematics for a long moment. The principle is sound, he admitted reluctantly. The harmonic approach might actually be more elegant than trying to brute force compatibility between the systems. But the cultural implications are my concern, the Queen said firmly. Technician Shun, how long would this modification take? Marcus did some quick calculations. If I can fabricate the resonance filter using the station's workshop facilities, maybe 8 hours for the construction and another 4 for installation and testing. And if the modification fails? Marcus met her gaze honestly. Then, the armor would be in exactly the same condition it's in now. But I don't think it will fail. This is what humans do. We find ways to make incompatible things work together. The Queen considered this for a moment. Very well. You have 12 hours to attempt your repair. But I have one condition. What's that? I want to observe the entire process. I want to understand how human engineering approaches problems that our advanced technologies cannot solve. And so began one of the most unusual collaborations in galactic history. Marcus worked through the night, fabricating a harmonic resonance filter using principles that his grandfather had taught him about tuning mechanical instruments. The device itself was tiny, no larger than a human thumb, but its creation required a deep understanding of both wave mechanics and material science. Queen's RTHYSS proved to be an excellent student. She asked intelligent questions about every step of the process, from the selection of materials to the mathematical principles governing harmonic frequencies. Marcus found himself explaining human approaches to engineering that he had never really thought about consciously. Your people seem to view technology as something that must adapt to circumstances rather than circumstances adapting to technology, she observed as Marcus carefully calibrated the filter's resonance points. I guess that's true, Marcus replied, making a tiny adjustment to one of the harmonic chambers. We've never had the luxury of perfect conditions. Everything we build has to work in environments we can't completely control, with materials that aren't exactly what we want, and alongside systems that were never designed to work together. That must be very frustrating. Marcus grinned. Actually, it's kind of fun. Every problem is a puzzle, and there's always more than one way to solve it. As the hours passed, something unexpected happened. Other beings began to gather in the maintenance bay, drawn by curiosity about the unprecedented collaboration. Technician Veldar stayed throughout the night, eventually contributing his own expertise to help optimize the filter's integration with Kandorian quantum systems. A group of Sithri engineers arrived to observe the harmonic calibration process, their crystalline forms humming in resonance with the test frequencies. Even some of the station's artificial intelligences, the Kogari collective minds, sent a representative to monitor the work. The mechanical being observed Marcus's methods with electronic precision, occasionally offering suggestions that demonstrated a deep understanding of both human and alien engineering principles. This is unprecedented, Queen Zeratichwss said as she watched the diverse group of beings collaborating around her armor. I have never seen so many different species working together on a single project. It happens more often than you might think, Marcus said, carefully installing the resonance filter into the armor's quantum matrix. Most of the major engineering projects on this station require cooperation between multiple species. We all have different strengths. And what is humanity's strength? Marcus paused in his work to consider the question. We don't give up, and we're willing to try solutions that everyone else thinks are crazy. The installation of the harmonic filter took 6 hours of painstaking work. Every connection had to be perfect, every calibration precise. The device itself was a marvel of miniaturization, containing harmonic chambers that could resonate at frequencies spanning several octaves. But the real complexity was in the software that would control the filter's operation. Marcus had written the control algorithms using human programming languages translated through the station's universal computer systems. The result was code that looked familiar to him, but alien to everyone else. A mixture of logical structures and intuitive leaps that reflected the way human minds approached complex problems. The filter is installed, Marcus announced as the final connection was made. Now we test it. The testing process was gradual and careful. First, they activated the armor's basic systems without the quantum encryption module. The golden veins that ran through the black material began to glow with their original soft light, and the dark patterns that had marked the system failures disappeared one by one. Primary systems operational, reported Veldar, monitoring the armor status through his advanced diagnostic equipment. Power distribution normal. No cascade patterns detected. Next, they activated the quantum encryption module in isolation. The new systems came online smoothly, their advanced security protocols functioning exactly as designed. Encryption systems operational, announced the Kogari representative, whose electronic consciousness could interface directly with the quantum matrices. All security protocols functioning within normal parameters. Finally, the moment of truth. Marcus activated both systems simultaneously, allowing them to operate through the harmonic filter he had created. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the armor began to sing. It was a sound unlike anything Marcus had ever heard, a harmony that seemed to blend the mathematical precision of quantum mechanics with the organic flow of living music. The golden veins in the armor pulsed in rhythm with the sound, and the queen's eyes widened in wonder. "It's beautiful," she whispered. The diagnostic equipment confirmed what they could all feel. The armor was functioning perfectly. Better than perfectly, actually. The harmonic filter wasn't just preventing interference between the systems. It was helping them work together in ways that neither had been capable of alone. Power efficiency up 15%, reported Veldar in amazement. Response time improved across all systems. "I have never seen performance metrics like these." Marcus felt a deep satisfaction settle over him. The repair was complete, but something much more important had happened. A room full of beings from different worlds had worked together to solve a problem that none of them could have solved alone. And in the process, they had created something new, a symbol of what was possible when different approaches to engineering and problem solving were combined instead of competing. Queen Zeratichus stood slowly, feeling the armor respond to her movements with newfound grace and power. The systems that had been dark and dead for 3 days now flowed with life and purpose. "The repair is complete?" she asked. "The repair is complete," Marcus confirmed. "But I think what we created here is bigger than just a fix. We created a bridge between different ways of thinking about technology." The queen nodded, understanding more than he had expected. "And in doing so, perhaps we have created a bridge between different ways of thinking about each other." As word of the successful repair spread through the station, Marcus realized that his simple answer to a technical problem had become something much more significant. The question, "Who fixed my armor?" now had an answer that surprised everyone. It wasn't just the human engineer or the Kandorian technician or any single individual. It was all of them, working together, each contributing their unique perspective to solve a problem that had seemed impossible. The real magic wasn't in the advanced alien technology or the sophisticated quantum matrices. It was in the moment when different minds met to tackle a shared challenge, bringing their individual strengths together to create something greater than the sum of its parts. Word of the successful armor repair spread through Nexus Station faster than Marcus had expected. Within hours of completing the work, he found himself receiving communication requests from across the galaxy. Engineers from dozens of species wanted to understand the harmonic resonance principles he had used. Military contractors inquired about licensing the technology. Academic institutions requested detailed technical papers. But the most unexpected response came from the Elendari Empire itself. 3 days after the repair, Marcus was working on a routine maintenance job when Coordinator Ylith approached him with an expression that mixed confusion and excitement. "Marcus, I have received a formal request from the Elendari Imperial Academy of Sciences. They want to offer you a position as a consulting engineer for their advanced research division." Marcus nearly dropped the plasma coupling he was installing. "They want to what?" "It gets stranger," Ylith continued, her blue skin showing the patterns that indicated she was sharing important news. Queen's HFY has also submitted a personal request to the Galactic Council asking that you be granted special diplomatic status as a technological liaison between humanity and the Elendari Empire. I don't understand. I just fixed some armor. Ylitha's large eyes showed amusement. Marcus, you created a functioning interface between incompatible alien technologies using principles that none of our scientists had considered. The harmonic filter you designed has applications far beyond royal armor repair. And you did it all while demonstrating that cooperation between species can achieve results that individual brilliance cannot. Marcus was still processing this when another message arrived. This one came directly from Earth, from the Human Colonial Engineering Council. Technician Chun, the message began. Your work on Nexus Station has come to the attention of the Colonial Engineering Board. We are pleased to inform you that you have been selected for promotion to Senior Engineering Specialist, with full authorization to represent human technical capabilities in interspecies projects. Your innovative approach to cross-species technological cooperation exemplifies the best of human engineering principles. It was all happening too fast. Marcus had come to Nexus Station as a simple maintenance technician, happy to fix broken things and learn about alien technology. Now he was apparently some kind of diplomatic engineer with responsibilities he hadn't asked for and didn't fully understand. The situation became even more complex when Queen Zora THYSS returned to the station a week later, this time with a full diplomatic entourage and a request that went far beyond armor repair. Marcus Chun, she said as they met again in the same maintenance bay, where everything had started, I have a proposition for you. But first, I must share some information that was not widely known when we first met. Marcus noticed that the Queen looked different somehow. The stress and fatigue he had seen during the armor crisis were gone, replaced by a sense of purpose and determination. The armor itself had changed as well. The golden veins now pulsed with a more complex pattern, as if the harmonic filter had awakened something dormant in the ancient technology. The attack on my ship was not random, the Queen continued. For the past 6 months, the Elendari Empire has been receiving reports of systematic raids against our outer colonies. The raiders use advanced weapons and seem to know exactly when and where our defense fleets will be weakest. We believe someone within the galactic community is providing them with intelligence. Marcus felt a chill. You think there's a spy among the allied species? More than a spy. We think there's a coordinated effort to destabilize the current balance of power in this sector. The attack on my ship was meant to either kill me or demonstrate the weakness of Elendari technology. Instead, it led to the discovery of new possibilities for technological cooperation. The Queen gestured to her armor, which hummed softly with harmonious energy. The modifications you made have revealed something unexpected. The original armor was designed with connection points for additional systems that were lost when our homeworld was attacked 3,000 years ago. The harmonic filter you created accidentally reactivated those connection points. Marcus stared at the armor with new understanding. You mean the armor was originally part of a larger system? A network, confirmed the Queen. Royal armor from across the galaxy, all connected through harmonic resonance, allowing instantaneous communication and coordination across vast distances. The technology was considered too dangerous and was deliberately abandoned after the Great War. But the crisis we face now may require us to consider dangerous alternatives. Marcus began to see where this was leading. You want me to help you recreate this network? Not just recreate it, improve it. The original network used only Elendari technology and was vulnerable to the quantum weapons used in the Great War. But your harmonic approach suggests that a mixed technology network, one that incorporates engineering principles from multiple species, might be more stable and harder to disrupt. The implications were staggering. Marcus was being asked to help develop technology that could reshape the balance of power across the galaxy. The quiet maintenance technician who had just wanted to fix broken things was suddenly at the center of interstellar politics. There's more, the Queen added. We have identified 17 other species whose traditional technologies include harmonic principles similar to those you used in your repair. If we could bring them together, create a true collaborative engineering effort, we might be able to build something unprecedented. Marcus thought about the collection of beings who had gathered to observe the armor repair. Kandorians, Sithari, Kogari, and others, each contributing their unique perspective to the solution. The idea of expanding that collaboration to a galactic scale was both thrilling and terrifying. What about the other human colonies? Marcus asked. Earth should be part of this if humanity is going to be involved. Already arranged, the Queen said with a slight smile. Your Colonial Engineering Council has agreed to assign a full technical team to the project. They will arrive on Nexus Station next week to begin preliminary work. Marcus felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders again. But this time, instead of being overwhelmed, he found himself excited by the challenge. The project the Queen was describing was exactly the kind of impossible problem that humans specialized in solving. There's something else you should know, the Queen continued, her tone becoming more serious. The raiders who attacked my ship left behind some debris when they retreated. Analysis of that debris has revealed something troubling. The weapons they were using incorporate stolen Elendari, Kandorian, and human technologies. Someone with access to all three civilizations' military research is supplying these raiders. An inside job, Marcus said grimly. Someone with high-level clearances in multiple governments. Exactly. Which means that conventional diplomatic channels may be compromised. The Harmonic Network Project will give us a way to communicate and coordinate without using the standard galactic communication systems. Marcus nodded, understanding the full scope of what was being asked of him. This wasn't just about building new technology. It was about creating a secure way for loyal forces across the galaxy to work together against a threat that had infiltrated the normal channels of power. Over the following days, Nexus Station became the center of an unprecedented gathering. Engineers and scientists from 18 different species arrived to participate in what was officially called the Harmonic Integration Research Project, but was privately known as Project Resonance. Marcus found himself in the strange position of being both a technical leader and a diplomatic liaison. His success with the armor repair had made him a symbol of what cross-species cooperation could accomplish, and many of the visiting scientists wanted to work directly with him. The human engineering team that arrived from Earth included some of the best minds from the Colonial Engineering Council. Dr. Sarah Kim, a specialist in quantum mechanics, brought expertise that complemented Marcus's practical engineering approach. Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison, a military engineer with experience in combat system integration, provided insights into the security requirements for the network they were building. But the most valuable team member was someone Marcus hadn't expected. His grandfather, Thomas Chun, the retired mechanic who had given him his first toolkit. They told me you were doing something important out here, the old man said as he stepped off the transport, carrying his own ancient toolkit. Figured you might need someone who remembers how things worked before we got too clever for our own good. Marcus hugged his grandfather, feeling a connection to Earth, and his own history that he hadn't realized he was missing. Grandpa, what are you doing here? This is all advanced alien technology. Son, Thomas Chun replied with a grin, I've been fixing things that weren't supposed to work together for 70 years. Advanced alien technology is just a new set of tools. The old man's presence proved invaluable almost immediately. While the younger engineers focused on the complex quantum interactions and harmonic mathematics, Thomas Chun looked at the fundamental mechanical principles underlying all the systems. His insights into stress distribution, thermodynamics, and basic material science helped solve problems that had stumped scientists with decades of advanced education. The key, he explained to a group of fascinated alien engineers, is not to fight the natural characteristics of your materials. Every substance wants to behave in certain ways. Good engineering works with those natural tendencies instead of against them. The Sithari engineers, whose crystalline bodies gave them an intuitive understanding of harmonic resonance, were particularly interested in Thomas Chen's approach. They spent hours discussing the relationship between mechanical vibration and material stress with an old human mechanic who had learned his trade fixing combustion engines. As the project progressed, Marcus began to see patterns emerging that none of them had anticipated. The harmonic principles that governed the Elendari armor weren't unique to that technology. Similar patterns appeared in the Sithari communication crystals, the Kandorian quantum matrices, and even in the human musical instruments that had inspired his original solution. It's like the universe has a preferred frequency, he explained to Dr. Kim as they studied the accumulated data. All of these technologies developed independently across thousands of years, and dozens of worlds keep converging on the same basic harmonic relationships. That's not scientifically possible, Dr. Kim replied, but she was studying the data with obvious fascination. Unless what? Unless the harmonic relationships we're seeing aren't arbitrary. Unless they reflect some fundamental property of how energy and matter interact at the quantum level. The implications of that possibility were staggering. If the harmonic patterns they had discovered represented universal physical laws, then the network they were building might be more than just a communication system. It might be a window into the basic structure of reality itself. As word of their discoveries spread among the research team, excitement began to build. They weren't just creating new technology. They were potentially uncovering fundamental truths about the universe that had remained hidden until now. But with that excitement came danger. If the harmonic principles they had discovered were as powerful as they seemed, then the technology could be used for purposes far beyond communication and defense. The same energy patterns that could connect allies across the galaxy could also be weaponized by those who understood their true nature. Marcus realized that they were at a crossroads. The choices made in the next few days would determine not just the success of their project, but the future balance of power across the galaxy. The simple question, who fixed my armor, had led to discoveries that could change everything. And somewhere in the galaxy, the raiders who had started this chain of events were still out there, still being supplied with stolen technology by someone who had access to the highest levels of galactic civilization. The network they were building might be the key to stopping those raiders, but only if they could complete it before their enemies realized what they were creating. The breakthrough came at 0347 station time, during what should have been a routine calibration test. Marcus was working with a team of Sithari engineers to fine-tune the harmonic frequencies when something unexpected happened. The test network, which consisted of only 5 prototype units scattered around Nexus Station, suddenly synchronized into a pattern none of them had programmed. The crystalline Sithari engineer, Kawaitichera, was the first to realize what was happening. Her body began resonating in harmony with the network, and her translated voice carried a note of wonder. The network is not just connecting our devices. It is connecting us. Marcus felt it too, a subtle awareness of the other team members scattered around the station. Not telepathy exactly, but something deeper. He could sense the focused concentration of Dr. Kim in the quantum laboratory, the steady patience of his grandfather working on mechanical components 3 levels down, and the complex, harmonious thoughts of the alien engineers throughout the facility. This wasn't in the specifications, said Lieutenant Commander Morrison, his military training making him immediately suspicious of unexpected results. We designed a communication network, not a consciousness interface. But Queen Zarathustra, who had been observing the test from the main control room, had a different perspective. Perhaps this is what the network was always meant to do, she said softly. Perhaps our ancestors understood something about the nature of consciousness that we had forgotten. The implications were staggering. If the harmonic network could create a shared awareness among its users, then it wasn't just a communication tool. It was a way for different species to literally understand each other at a level that had never been achieved before. But the moment of wonder was interrupted by an urgent alarm from the station's security systems. Incoming ships, announced Coordinator Yylith over the general comm. Unknown configuration, approaching fast. All personnel to emergency stations. Marcus rushed to the observation deck with the others, where they could see the approaching vessels through the station's massive transparent aluminum windows. The ships were sleek and predatory, with weapon configurations that were clearly designed for one purpose: destruction. "Raiders," Queen Zartichus said grimly. "They found us." The timing couldn't have been coincidental. Somehow, the Raiders had learned about Project Resonance and were moving to stop it before the network could be completed. The prototype units they had been testing were still scattered around the station in an incomplete configuration, useful for research, but not yet capable of the full functionality they had been working toward. Lieutenant Commander Morrison immediately took charge of the defensive preparations. "How long until those ships reach firing range?" 14 minutes, replied Coordinator Yyleth after consulting her tactical displays. "Not enough time to evacuate the research materials," Dr. Kim said, her scientific mind already calculating the losses they would suffer. 3 months of work, all the prototype equipment, the harmonic resonance data. "Wait," Marcus interrupted, his mind racing through possibilities. "We don't need to evacuate the equipment. We need to make it work." Everyone stared at him. "Marcus," his grandfather said gently, "the network isn't ready. You said yourself it would take at least another week to complete the installations." "The installations, yes, but not the network itself." Marcus was already moving toward the control console, his fingers flying over the interface. "We've been thinking about this wrong. We've been trying to create a perfect system before we test it. But that's not how humans solve problems." "What are you suggesting?" Queen Zarthyss asked. "I'm suggesting we do what humans do best. We make it work with what we have." Marcus called up the station's engineering schematics on the main display. "Look, the prototype units are already installed throughout the station. They're not in the optimal configuration, and they're not fully calibrated, but they're functional. We can use the station itself as a giant harmonic resonance chamber." The alien engineers exchanged uncertain glances. The idea of using Nexus Station's massive structure as part of their experimental network was audacious even by human standards. "The risk," began Technician Veldar. "The risk of not trying is higher." Marcus cut him off. "Those raiders are here to steal our research and probably destroy the station in the process. If we can get the network online, even in an incomplete form, we might be able to coordinate a defense that they won't expect." Dr. Kim caught on first. "The consciousness interface we just discovered, if we can extend it to the station's defensive systems and the allied ships in the area, we could create a coordinated response network. Every ship, every weapon system, all operating in perfect harmony." "It's impossible," Lieutenant Commander Morrison said, but his tone suggested he was beginning to consider the possibilities. "The targeting calculations alone would require processing power we don't have." "No," said Kythra, her crystalline form brightening as she understood what Marcus was proposing. "Not calculations. Intuition. The network does not process information. It shares awareness. Each ship commander would feel the battle as if they were flying every ship simultaneously." Queen Zarthyss moved to the communication console. "I'm contacting all allied vessels in the area. If we're going to attempt this, we need every ship that can reach us in the next 10 minutes. Marcus was already deep in the station's engineering systems, rerouting power conduits and activating systems that had never been used in combination before. His grandfather worked beside him, his decades of mechanical experience helping to solve problems that the station's computer systems hadn't been programmed to handle. "This is insane," Dr. Kim muttered as she worked to synchronize the quantum matrices with the station's power grid. "We're attempting to create a functioning harmonic network using equipment designed for completely different purposes." "Insane is what humans do best," Marcus replied, connecting the final power coupling that would link the prototype units into a station-wide network. "Ready." The response came from throughout the station as engineers from a dozen species worked frantically to prepare their improvised network. In the 8 minutes since the raiders had been detected, the research team had converted 3 months of careful planning into an emergency battlefield implementation. All allied ships in position. Queen HFY reported. 17 vessels from 6 different species, all requesting to join the network. Network activation in 3, 2, 1. Marcus engaged the harmonic resonance system, and Nexus Station began to sing. The sound wasn't audible through normal hearing. It was felt rather than heard, a deep harmonic vibration that seemed to resonate in the bones and souls of everyone aboard the station. But for those connected to the network, it was something far more profound. Marcus suddenly found himself aware of every allied ship in the battle area. He could feel the determined courage of Captain Zeltar aboard the Kandorian cruiser Harmony of Stars, the focused intensity of Commander Sarah Park on the human destroyer Wellington, and the quiet confidence of wing leader Synthera commanding a squadron of Sithari fighters. But more than that, he could feel their tactical awareness, their understanding of space combat, their instinctive knowledge of how their ships moved and fought. The network hadn't just connected their communication systems. It had merged their combat experience into a single, coordinated intelligence. The raiders arrived expecting to face a collection of individual ships defending a research station. Instead, they encountered something that had never existed before. A perfectly coordinated fleet that moved and fought as a single organism. The battle that followed was unlike anything in recorded galactic history. The Allied ships flowed around each other in patterns that seemed impossible, each vessel positioned exactly where it needed to be to support the others. Weapons fire was coordinated with mathematical precision, targeting the raiders' ships at their precise points of vulnerability. But the most remarkable thing was that none of this coordination required orders or communication in any traditional sense. Each ship captain simply knew where they needed to be and what they needed to do, guided by the shared tactical awareness that flowed through the harmonic network. The raiders, despite their superior firepower and advanced stolen technology, found themselves completely outmaneuvered. Their ships were designed for individual combat against isolated targets, not for facing an enemy that could predict their moves and coordinate responses faster than their weapons could lock on. Within 20 minutes, the raider fleet was in full retreat, leaving behind 3 disabled vessels and a debris field that would provide valuable intelligence about their technology and origins. As the immediate danger passed, Marcus began to understand what they had actually accomplished. The improvised network hadn't just won a battle. It had demonstrated the potential for a completely new form of cooperation between species. The barriers of language, culture, and biology that had always limited interspecies collaboration had been temporarily dissolved. Status report. Queen's RTHYSS requested as the station's systems returned to normal operation. No casualties among Allied forces, reported Lieutenant Commander Morrison, his military training warring with amazement at what he had just experienced. Minimal damage to station systems. 3 raider ships captured for intelligence analysis. And the network? Asked Dr. Kim. Marcus checked his readings carefully. Stable. All prototype units functioning within normal parameters. The station's harmonic resonance systems are actually performing better than before we started. What we just experienced, said Kawaiichara, her crystalline form still humming with residual harmonics. It was not merely tactical coordination. We shared understanding at a level that transcends normal consciousness. Thomas Chun, who had experienced the battle from the engineering section, had a characteristically direct observation. Well, that's one way to test your prototype. But Queen's RTHYSS was already thinking beyond the immediate victory. The raiders knew about our research. They knew exactly when and where to attack to cause maximum damage. This confirms our suspicions about intelligence leaks in the standard diplomatic channels. More than that, Marcus added as he studied the tactical data from the battle. Look at these weapon signatures from the raider ships. I'm seeing Elendari quantum matrices, Kandorian targeting systems, and human propulsion technology all integrated into the same vessels. Someone with access to all of our research programs has been feeding information to these raiders. The implications were clear and disturbing. Somewhere within the galactic community's leadership, There was a coordinated effort to steal technology and destabilize the current balance of power. The raiders they had just defeated were just the military arm of something much larger. The network, Queen HFY said slowly, it gives us a way to communicate and coordinate without using the compromise channels. If we can complete the full installation, we can create a secure coordination system for loyal forces throughout the galaxy. Marcus nodded, understanding the scope of what they were being asked to build. But we need to be careful. If the same people who are feeding technology to the raiders learn about the full capabilities of the harmonic network, they'll do everything they can to stop us. Then, we work quickly, Dr. Kim said, and we work quietly. As the team began planning the next phase of their project, Marcus reflected on how far they had come from his simple armor repair just weeks earlier. The question, "Who fixed my armor?" had led to discoveries that could reshape the nature of cooperation across the galaxy. But it had also revealed threats that went to the heart of galactic civilization. The battle was won, but the war for the future of interspecies cooperation was just beginning. 6 months after the battle at Nexus Station, Marcus Chen stood in the newly constructed Harmonic Research Center on the human colony world of Haven's Rest. The facility was a marvel of cooperative engineering, built using architectural principles from a dozen different species and powered by harmonic resonance technologies that had grown far beyond his original armor repair. The captured raider ships had provided intelligence that confirmed their worst fears. The conspiracy against galactic stability was being orchestrated by a group calling themselves the Purist Coalition, extremists from multiple species who believed that technological cooperation between different civilizations was weakening the natural order of galactic evolution. The coalition had infiltrated governments, research institutions, and military organizations across dozens of worlds. They had been systematically stealing technology, feeding it to raider groups, and using the resulting chaos to argue for isolationist policies that would break apart the cooperative structures that held galactic civilization together. But their greatest mistake had been attacking Queen HFY's armor. That single act of aggression had set in motion a chain of events that would ultimately lead to their downfall. Marcus called Dr. Kim from across the research center's main laboratory. "We're ready for the final network test." Marcus looked up from a harmonic calibration device he had been adjusting. Around him, engineers from 18 different species worked on various components of what had become known as the Galactic Harmony Project. The original communication network had evolved into something far more significant, a system that could share not just information, but understanding itself. "All stations report ready," announced his grandfather, who had become the project's chief mechanical engineer despite his retirement. Thomas Chen's practical approach to engineering had proven invaluable in creating hardware that could integrate technologies spanning millions of years of development. "Network nodes online across 47 star systems," reported Lieutenant Commander Morrison, who now served as the project security coordinator. "All participants are in position." Marcus walked to the central control console, where Queen HFY was waiting. She still wore the armor that had started everything, though it had been upgraded several times with new capabilities that emerged from their ongoing research. The harmonic filter that Marcus had originally installed had become the template for a technology that was transforming civilization across the galaxy. "Are you ready?" she asked. Marcus nodded. "Let's find out what we've built." The activation of the full Galactic Harmony Network was unlike anything they had experienced during their limited tests. As the harmonic frequencies aligned across dozens of star systems, Marcus felt his consciousness expand to encompass a perspective that no single being had ever possessed. He could sense the determined resolve of human colonists on the frontier worlds, working to build new communities in challenging environments. He felt the ancient wisdom of the Elendari philosophers on their homeworld, contemplating questions that had occupied their minds for millennia. The crystalline unity of the Sithari collective sang in his awareness, while the mechanical precision of the Kogari artificial intelligences provided a framework of logic that helped organize the flood of sensation. But what struck him most powerfully was the commonality that underlay all the different forms of consciousness connected to the network. Despite the vast differences in biology, culture, and history, there were fundamental patterns of thought and feeling that seemed universal: curiosity, compassion, the desire to create and build, the instinct to protect those who were vulnerable. "Remarkable," whispered Queen Zertichus, her voice carrying harmonics from the network that made it seem like she was speaking for thousands of beings simultaneously. "I can feel the shape of galactic civilization as if it were a living organism." And in that shared awareness, they could also sense the dark spaces, the worlds where the purest coalition had taken hold, cutting themselves off from the cooperative networks that connected the rest of the galaxy. The isolation was like scar tissue in the fabric of civilization, places where fear and hatred had created barriers to understanding. "There," said Dr. Kim, her scientific training helping her focus the network's awareness on specific locations. "The Coalition's main coordination center. It's in the Rigel system, hidden within an asteroid mining operation." Through the network, they could sense the Coalition's activities with unprecedented clarity. The extremists had built their own communication systems using stolen technology, but their networks were based on dominance and control rather than cooperation. They couldn't hide from a system that operated on fundamentally different principles. "Military forces are already moving," reported Lieutenant Commander Morrison. "Coordinated operations across 17 systems." With the network providing real-time intelligence and coordination, the Coalition won't be able to use their normal tactics of misdirection and political manipulation. Marcus felt the operations unfolding through the network's shared awareness. But this wasn't like the desperate battle at Nexus Station. This was something more like surgery, precise, careful, designed to remove the Coalition's ability to cause harm while minimizing damage to the civilizations they had infiltrated. The beauty of the approach was that it didn't require military force in the traditional sense. The network allowed loyal forces to coordinate so perfectly that they could outmaneuver the Coalition's operations before violence became necessary. Infiltrators found themselves isolated from their support networks. Stolen technology was remotely disabled. Financial networks that had been supporting raider operations suddenly found their transactions blocked by banking systems that could share information faster than traditional security protocols could process. "It's working," Queen Zertichus said, her voice filled with wonder. "The Coalition is collapsing not because we're destroying them, but because we're removing their ability to operate in isolation." Through the network, Marcus could sense Coalition members across the galaxy being confronted with evidence of their activities, but also with opportunities to rejoin the cooperative civilization they had rejected. Many of them, faced with the choice between continued isolation and reconnection with the broader galactic community, chose cooperation. "This is what we built," Marcus said, understanding finally dawning on him. Not just a communication system, but a way for different forms of consciousness to genuinely understand each other. The Coalition's power came from their ability to exploit misunderstanding and fear. They can't function in an environment where understanding is the default. The operation to neutralize the purest Coalition took less than 6 hours. By the time it was complete, the extremist organization had effectively ceased to exist. Not because its members had been eliminated, but because the conditions that had allowed it to flourish had been transformed. As the network settled into its normal operational mode, Marcus found himself in the strange position of having helped create something that would outlive him by millions of years. The Galactic Harmony Project wasn't just a technological achievement. It was a new form of civilization, one based on genuine cooperation and understanding rather than temporary alliances of convenience. "So," said his grandfather, approaching the control console with a slight smile, "what's next?" "You've fixed galactic civilization itself. That's got to be the biggest repair job in human history." Marcus laughed, feeling lighter than he had in months. "I don't know. Maybe we start working on some of the smaller problems. There are still plenty of broken things in the galaxy that need fixing." Queen Zertichus removed her helmet, revealing a smile that seemed to carry the warmth of entire star systems. "There's something else," she said. A question that has been asked across the galaxy for the past 6 months, ever since word of the armor repair spread beyond Nexus Station. What question? Who fixed my armor? She replied. Everyone wants to know the name of the human engineer who started all of this. Marcus considered the question seriously. In the months since the original repair, he had learned something important about the nature of fixing things. Every repair, no matter how simple, was built on the work of countless others. Teachers who had shared knowledge, craftspeople who had built tools, thinkers who had developed the underlying principles that made solutions possible. Tell them, he said finally, that it wasn't just one person. Tell them it was everyone who was willing to share what they knew, work together on problems they couldn't solve alone, and believe that broken things could be fixed. He looked around the research center, where beings from across the galaxy continued to work on projects that would have been impossible for any single species to accomplish. Tell them it was everyone who understood that the best way to fix something is to make it stronger than it was before. Queen Zeratiatrus nodded, understanding the deeper truth in his words. And what about you, Marcus Chun? What will you do now that your repair work has changed the galaxy? Marcus picked up his grandfather's old toolkit, feeling the familiar weight of tools that had been used to fix things for over a century. I'm going to keep fixing things, he said simply. There's always something broken somewhere that could use a little attention. As he spoke, alerts began coming in from across the harmonic network. Reports of mechanical failures, technical problems, and engineering challenges from dozens of worlds. Each one represented an opportunity to help, to solve problems, and to bring people together in the common cause of making things work better. Besides, Marcus added with a grin that his grandfather recognized from the young boy who had once helped fix ancient combustion engines. I'm starting to think that fixing things might be what humans were meant to do in this galaxy. And we got a lot of experience with things that weren't supposed to work together. The question, who fixed my armor, had been answered in ways that no one had expected. It wasn't just about repairing a piece of technology. It was about repairing the connections between different forms of consciousness, different approaches to understanding the universe, and different ways of working together to solve impossible problems. Marcus Chun, the human engineer who had started it all with a simple willingness to help, had become a symbol of something larger than any individual achievement. He had shown that the greatest repairs weren't just technical. They were about fixing the broken places in civilization itself, one connection at a time. And in a galaxy full of wonders and challenges, there would always be more things to fix, more connections to make, and more opportunities for different minds to come together and create solutions that none of them could have imagined alone. The armor was fixed. Civilization was stronger. And somewhere in the vast expanse of space, new problems were waiting for the kind of stubborn human ingenuity that refused to accept that anything was truly beyond repair. The work would continue. The connections would grow stronger. And the galaxy would keep discovering that sometimes the most profound solutions come from the simplest willingness to help. When someone asks, "Can you fix this?"